Given that we just had one of the best strikers in the sport compete, Alex Pereira, I wanted to make a new and improved top strikers in MMA video. The last one I did was a top 10. Today we are going to be doing the top 15 best strikers in MMA. And I already know there's going to be a ton of comments along the lines of, what about this guy? Or what about that guy? Question mark. And listen, top 15. All right, so we can't do 30. We can't just, we're going to have to take one out of them to put your guy in? I don't think so, because my criteria is damn near bulletproof. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not the perfect list, because it's kind of hard to quantify this because these guys are in different weight classes. But one thing that I will say is there are no heavyweights. 0 heavyweights. I'm sorry, I know Aspinall's good with his hands, but he's beaten blobs. Yeah, Volkov's pretty good, and he beat Volkov, but you know what? Like, I'm sorry, bro. The heavyweight division is just too shit. Until I see one of these heavyweights beat an elite level striker. And the thing is, Gane is an elite level striker, but the thing is, Gane hasn't beaten the who's who. And the best guy he's beat is Volkov, but it wasn't that dominant. Until I see Gane outstrike Aspinall, or if I see Aspinall outstrike Gane, like, I just can't have any of them on the list. I'm sorry. Let's get into this. First one on the list, Steve Ercik. He's the only flyweight that's making the list, and the flyweight division is incredible. All right, I know that we don't really talk about any flyweights as being like a top 5 striker or top 5 wrestler. It's the forgotten division, right? But I honestly think that Steve Ercik has a solid argument to be at least the representative of the flyweight division, given that he schooled Pantoja on the feet. And, you know, he hasn't done enough to warrant him a higher spot, but he's been pretty awesome recently. And the guy that he had a semi-close fight with before he fought for the belt has also been doing really well. I'm talking about Costa. So Steve Ercik has done nothing but pretty much school people on the feet for his whole career. I think he has the slickest boxing in the UFC flyweight division right now. I know that Moreno's pretty good, but Moreno honestly seems to be falling off a bit. And Moreno had a more competitive fight with Pantoja on the feet, even though he was kind of schooling him a bit, but he was getting dropped, right? Moreno was schooling Pantoja, but he was getting dropped. It was a more dirty fight, whereas Ercik kind of controlled range like a technical maestro. And I think he's going to beat Kai Kara-France too. Now, this, again, we need to see more. We need to see him prove more. But I'm just going to say that he is my representative for the flyweights because of how technical he is. He has the long, wiry kickboxing style. He's got the really clean boxing, pretty good defense. And everything is just perfect technique with the flyweight skill as well. I thought he would make the list. Okay, let's get on to the next one. Cory Sandhagen at the number 14 spot. Now, Cory Sandhagen's on thin ice. He is on thin ice because he's got great striking, right? We saw the spinning wheel kick against Marlon Moraes. We saw the flying knee against Frankie Edgar. He got outstruck by Petr Yan, so he can't be higher than Yan, all right? He got outstruck by Yan. He did, in my opinion, beat TJ Dillashaw. He absolutely did, but it wasn't a total masterclass, and that's, you know, it's against TJ Dillashaw, fair enough. I know he was old, but you know what? It's still TJ. I think Cory won that fight, but, like, I just have a feeling O'Malley's going to smoke this guy, right? I just have a feeling that Petr Yan always beats this guy. And I can't confidently say that he's even a top 3 striker in his own division. And he's also starting to really improve on his offensive wrestling game, and he's using it more and more. And when I'm watching him fight people like Chito Vera, yeah, he's outclassing Chito Vera, but, like, I just think I need a little bit more dominance against a guy like Chito. Just a little bit more dominance against him. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, he did outclass him, but I'm not seeing Cory Sandhagen set any strike records. I'm seeing Cory Sandhagen flying knee a chinny guy like Marlon Moraes and an old head chinny guy like Frankie Edgar, but I just need a little bit more dominance. I need some more highlight moments, okay? And I need him to beat people's ass a little bit more. Because it seems like against Rob Font, we only saw wrestling. And I know he injured his tricep, but, like, hey, when's the last time we've seen Cory Sandhagen show us anything that shocked us on the feet? Like, he's good. He can switch stances. He's always winning the outside foot battle. He's one of these, you know, beakers and test tubes guys. And I absolutely think he is going to outstrike Umar Nurmagomedov. He's amazing. I'm just telling you why he's not higher. Some people have him in the top 10. I think O'Malley shuts him down and schools him. But you do have to put him in the list. I think that this guy's fight IQ is ridiculous, right? As I said, beakers and test tubes all day. And he's got a good chin too, but like, he can do flying knees. He can throw spinning back kicks, but he's also got really solid body kicks. And he's also able to just put a ton of points on the board with leg kicks. And he's a thinking man out there. Cory Sandhagen's got a real thinking man's game, and you got to respect it. Boxing is good. He's got that long, proddy, wiry jab. But again, I just think that this is a good spot for him. I wouldn't put him in my top 10. The people in the top 10 are more amazing, in my opinion. But he's at the number 14 spot. Robert Whittaker at the number 13 spot. Let me just say this, because I feel like I did more critique of Cory Sandhagen. But the reason why I'm doing that is because we're going up the list. Like, I'm going to let you guys know why he's not higher. Because someone's going to be higher and someone's going to say Cory Sandhagen should be higher. But the biggest point that I'm making is I need Cory Sandhagen to outstrike one of the best strikers in their prime. Okay? And I need it to look like a masterclass in order for him to be higher. Yan, in my opinion, kind of shut him down on the feet in the later half of their fight. And O'Malley kind of went tit for tat with Yan, and some people think he slightly outstruck him. I mean, I think if that's just a striking battle, O'Malley's winning the points battle alone, but Yan did hurt him. My point is, Yan outstruck Aldo, and I just think that I need to see him fuck someone up that's not Frankie Edgar or Marlon Moraes, and that the Marlon Vera fight wasn't as dominant as it needed to be for me to be wowed. Okay, but it was a good fight. It was a high IQ fight. Let's get on to Robert Whittaker. Number 13, he wouldn't have made the list unless he knocked out Ikram Aleskadov. Take him to a decision. Depending on his performance, of course, maybe he beats the shit out of him. He would make the list for sure, but he knocked him out. And Robert Whittaker was on thin ice because he had been finished by DDP. But he's definitely making the list now. I mean, that boxing is just continuing to improve. Beautiful boxing Robert Whittaker has. We saw the uppercut against Ikram. And Ikram Aleskadov is a dangerous guy. I think Ikram Aleskadov is capable of outstriking half the middleweights, to be honest, especially with the threat of the roster, with the threat of the takedown. And when I say half the middleweights, I'm not talking about half the ranked middleweights. I'm talking about half the middleweights on the fucking roster, most of whom will never be ranked. So Whittaker just got a win over a really solid fighter, and he outstruck Adesanya in the rematch. He's 1-1 with him, and people respect Adesanya's skill set highly. And it's like, we're talking about top 15 strikers in MMA right now. Whittaker got the most recent win when those two have fought. You know what I mean? Adesanya with the win in 2019, Whittaker the win in 2022. Close fight, Whittaker won. Okay, so don't even fuck with me on this one. All right. So he outstruck Adesanya, and he beat the fuck out of Marvin Vettori. You know what I mean? Like, only two people have literally, we talk about Marvin Vettori, but he's had a bunch of fights in the UFC. Only two people have created a masterpiece against Marvin Vettori, and Robert Whittaker was one of them. Jared Cannonier was the other. Jared Cannonier lost the first round and got hurt badly in the first round. Robert Whittaker, the first round was close against Marvin, but didn't get hurt. I mean, total masterclass, okay? And he's known as being like the guy that fucks up everyone so badly that it's kind of crazy how he's not even the champ when the champ can't even fuck them up that badly. But listen, Whittaker, like, he's just a beast. The Yoel Romero fights in the rematch. Yoel, outside of the fifth round, which in my opinion was the most dominant round for him, fourth, first, second, even the third where he got hurt, Whittaker was in control for like 95% of those fights against Yoel Romero, just battering him. Okay? Able to outstrike a really solid distance management guy like Darren Till, who can snipe people with that left hand. That's a really respectable opponent to outstrike. And, of course, we also saw him outstrike Jared Cannonier. We've just consistently seen Whittaker school people. Kelvin Gastelum. Look at Kelvin Gastelum and D-Rod. Welterweight skill, D-Rod. Having a very entertaining, high output war against KG. Look at Chris Curtis. Respected boxer. He trains with Sean Strickland. He's got to be pretty good defensively. He has a war with Kelvin Gastelum. Robert Whittaker hardly got hit, hardly got touched, just styled on him and beat the shit out of him for 5 rounds. And that's kind of what we normally see. So Whittaker has to make the list. Super fast. His boxing is improving. I think, honestly, he could potentially outstrike the guy that's right above him. I think that he might be one of the only people at middleweight capable of being able to box with Sean Strickland because he's so fast and because he's so explosive and because he doesn't have to fear the pillow hands coming back in his direction. But I will say this, 1-1 with Adesanya, who's very good, And getting destroyed by DDP is not as good as outstriking Dricus du Plessis for the most part. You know what I mean? I do think it was a very close fight, but, you know, just the striking alone in that fight, I think Sean Strickland slightly got the better. He didn't get finished like Whitaker. Against Adesanya, he's not 1-1. He had a 49-44 where he dropped Adesanya in the first round. That's basically 10-8, and then schooled him for the rest of the fight. Best defense in the upper weight classes, no doubt. I mean, Alex Pereira, since his fight with Sean Strickland and training with Sean Strickland, has even improved on his defense. Maybe it has to do with a little bit of the training that he's done with Sean, but, you know, this guy is one of the most defensively sound strikers on the planet. His boxing is really good. I wish he were to sort of push a heavier pace, meaning he does push a pace. He does push a heavy pace. Like, that's what he does. I mean to say, because Strickland has one of the best abilities to put people into like a smothering style of pace where you still can't hit him because he's so good defensively. So you're basically just like throwing the kitchen sink and gassing yourself out in the early going of a fight. And then you've just still got him in front of you for 5 rounds, just doing the same thing, slightly outstriking you with his low output. Unfortunately, Strickland does kind of have low output. I wish he was a little bit more aggressive when it came to like sitting down on shots and actually trying to hurt people, because I believe that, yes, I understand that defense is the first thing that Whitaker, that I keep fucking mentioning Whitaker. Defense is Sean Strickland's MO. That's how he wins his fights. Defense first. But, like, you know, a little bit more offense, a little bit more sitting down on shots and committing to them, and I think we would see more dominant performances. Like the fight with Paulo Costa, by no mean a dominant performance. It was a clear win for him. It was a clean win for him. But, again, man, those fucking teep kicks, man, those are like not even pillows. The pillows are harder than those teep kicks. What are we, tissue kicks? Basically just fucking tossing out cotton balls? I mean, goodness gracious, man. Sean Strickland's got cotton ball kicks. All right? Freaking pepper, little pipsqueak kicks. Fruity pebble kicks, man. Fucking turn some heat up on those. And again, the defense is really what makes him so good. But his hands are good too. He's got good hands. I just think that he could have been a little bit more aggressive against Paulo Costa. And I think he could have had sort of a Max Holloway and Ortega sort of fight where, yeah, Holloway got hit a lot against Ortega, but he landed like 500 strikes. I think Strickland could have been battering Costa in that fight. I think he even could have maybe gotten a finish, because every time he moved forward and actually fucking sat on some shots, then he hurt Costa and had him showing up for dear life. But yeah, really good though. I mean, lost to Jared Cannonier, in my opinion, and I know that's a close fight. People are going to say it's a robbery. I don't think that was a robbery. I actually think Jared Cannonier edged it out. Got knocked out by Alex Pereira, so he can't be that much higher, but he also has great wins over a guy like Adesanya, over Nasruddin Imavov, who's a really solid fighter that just had a razor-close fight with Jared Cannonier. I know there was a weird stoppage, so I'm not going to say he won, because that stoppage was dog shit, but a really solid striker. That win keeps aging well. Win over Jack Hermanson. Jack Hermanson just kind of styled on Joe Pyfer and schooled him a little bit in the later rounds of that fight, and Joe Pyfer is one of the most dangerous fighters in that division. Sean Strickland didn't have an issue with Jack Hermanson, not one bit. So Strickland has to be on this list. Another good win, like if he goes out there and beats DDP in the rematch or outstrikes another high-level striker, we'll definitely have him higher. But, outside of Adesanya, outside of Nasruddin Imavov and Adesanya, he needs more wins against high-level strikers, you know what I mean? Because he lost against Cannonier and he lost against Pereira, so can't be that much higher either way. And also, I feel like you need to beat the fuck out of people sometimes in order to really earn your name as like a top 5 striker in the UFC, right? You got to embarrass people on the feet by hurting them. So, Jan Blachowicz starting to slip a little bit due to his inactivity, but we saw him school Adesanya and just absolutely make him look like a fool. And the thing about Jan Blachowicz is his defense is awesome. He's probably a top 10 most defensive fighter in the UFC. Leg kick defense on point, body kick defense on point. You can't just win a kicking battle against this guy unless your name is Alex Pereira. Speaking of Alex Pereira, look at how dominant he's been Jan Blachowicz gave him the closest fight in the UFC. I know the threat of the takedown was present, and I know that Jan won the first round via the takedown. But even the rounds he lost, the fact that he didn't get KO'd, I mean, I know it's kind of weird to give someone points for their striking because they have a good chin, but like, Jan Blachowicz has good eyesight too. He could see the punches coming. He had a close striking battle with Alex Pereira. He was doing really well in the boxing. And even though it's a loss, he's done better than all these other guys, okay? Except for the one guy to beat Pereira, which was by knocking him out. But, you know, Adesanya is a good striker too. Jan Blachowicz also outstruck Alexander Gustafsson back in the day. Hardcore fans, you know, people that were watching the sport back in the day, they have a lot of respect for Gustafsson. But what they don't know, the new fans, is that Blachowicz lost to him. And they'll look at that loss and they'll be like, lost to Gustafsson. That just goes to show Gustafsson's greatness on the feet. Actually, Blachowicz outstruck him but got grappled. Outstruck Alexander Rakic. Rakic couldn't continue. His leg was so fucked up, it increased the risk of injury, and he got injured in that fight. You know, knocked out Luke Rockhold, knocked out Dominic Reyes coming off of a win over John Jones. Reyes was undefeated at the time. An amazing win at the time. And, of course, he knocked out Corey Anderson. I mean, he's only really been outstruck a few times in his career. And got knocked out against Santos. Got slightly outstruck against Alex Pereira. But that's basically it, right? Jan Blachowicz, one of the best strikers on the planet. And just, you know, he doesn't have a fancy style. He's got that big, ugly style. Big, ugly low kicks. Ugly jabs. With a big block head. With a, you know, hunchback in Notre Dame. But still, Jan Blachowicz, every now and then he'll catch you off guard with a speedy running combination where he'll put a 1-2 flurry together and he'll add a body kick to the end of that and he'll bruise your ribs, right? Or, you know, Jan Blachowicz will have his back up against the cage. You'll expect him to be backing down. And, you know, maybe he's getting old and all of a sudden he cracks you with a nice right hand faster than you'd expect. So Jan Blachowicz is very crafty. We're going to put him at the 11th spot. Yair Rodriguez, dude. Yair looks like such a pipsqueak here, dude. Yair may have gotten beat by Brian Ortega. That don't mean shit when it comes to his striking, okay? Because I thought about that when I put him on here. He has slipped a little bit because, again, he's not won recently and he's not the most active fighter. But listen, I don't give a fuck if he got submitted by Brian Ortega. He beat the shit out of Brian Ortega on the feet, okay? Yeah, he got submitted by one of the best grapplers in the sport. This is a striking list. He dropped Ortega twice, okay? He had Alexander Volkanovski shooting for dear life, as Volk should with a high IQ. And he lost that fight, so it's one of those things where it's like Volk TKO'd him, fair enough, so that's points for Volk. But he made Volk shoot takedowns. So although he didn't get the better of the striking at the end of the day, he was the one that like was fucking Volk up in the beginning of the fight. Not fucking him up, meaning like hitting him all the time, but so fast, so dynamic. You have no idea what's coming. It's like a pop quiz every single second. He's uncontrollable on the feet. Like, you just can't contain this guy on the feet. You just can't. He's like MVP. He's one of these guys where it's like there's nothing you can do to contain him on the feet. Even against Max Holloway. Holloway needed to shoot takedowns to pull away. It was dead even in that fight. And that's, you know, it's greatly helped by the fact that Max is like a granite chin and he can't be KO'd. But Yair was giving him the business on the feet. Even in the fucking deep waters of that fight, 5th round, 4th round, still striking with tons of output. He got beat up on the ground. It was even on the feet. But my point is, even on the feet with Max, like getting Max and Volk to shoot, outstriking them at times, and knocking down Ortega. We saw what he did to Emmett. I mean, people hype up Ilia Topuria's performance against Emmett. This guy rolled him up into a fucking joint, into a Bazooka Joe joint, and smoked him. Smoked him! Yeah! This guy's underrated. I know that some of you guys are going to be saying, well, Luke's just rating him high because he's a Volk fan. You're goddamn right. But I'm also not being delusional. All right? Again, I don't even fucking play with me on this one. I'm not being stupid here. This guy made Alexander Volkanovski at the time coming off of a win over Max Holloway in the trilogy, having outstruck Jose Aldo, having gone tit for tat with Islam Makhachev. Like, Volk ain't shooting takedowns as a first things first before that in his career, either than when he came into the UFC and whatnot, and he was well-rounded or whatever. But Volk was like, you know, striving off of his striking at the time, and he had so much respect for this guy that he was like, fuck that. Fuck that. Of course he's in the top 10. Same thing with Holloway. Holloway was like, dude, fuck this, dude. I gotta shoot a takedown if I'm actually gonna have a clear victory. I don't want to leave it to the judges. This shit's getting crazy. Get my point. He's top 10. All right? He could literally do anything on the feet. He could mess you up at any range. He could sleep you at any second. Case in point, ask TKZ. He still hasn't woken up. Nah, TKZ's woken up, dude, but still. And you know what? There's a bit of a myth that TKZ was whooping his ass in that fight before he got slept. I rewatched that fight back very closely a few times, and I've never seen TKZ whooping his ass. I actually think Yair Rodriguez was slightly outstriking TKZ, but whatever. Either way, Michael Venom Page at the number 9 spot. Similar to Yair Rodriguez, just one of these guys where it's like he's so tricky that you just can't really figure it out. You know what I mean? And he's too OP. He's too OP. He's too fast. And his distance management is insane. And he's just a bitch to be able to hit. He's never in range for people to hit. The issue with him being higher than this, because I honestly think he's able to outstrike everyone at 170. Like Jack Della Maddalena, I know he has he's got the Guerrero style, the tough man style with the tight guard and all that. I don't even think JDM is going to be able to get close to this guy to be able to tee off on him enough to get the better of him. JDM needs to get in on the inside. I don't think he gets in on the inside of Michael Venom Page, who's so good at keeping distance. And so Wonder Boy is excellent. We'll talk about Wonder Boy, but I don't think anyone gets the better of him on the feet. The reason why he's at number 9 and not higher, and I know he's only had 2 fights in the UFC, but like, listen, this isn't it's not all about, okay, like best striker, meaning just visually, right? Just visually, what are you doing on the feet? It's also about like resume. What have you done as well? It's a little bit of both. And he just hasn't done enough in the UFC, right? A win over Kevin Holland. He lost to Ian Gary, but he outstruck Ian Gary. I know Gary is delusional talking about how he rocked MVP. He said that in the post-fight press conference, but he's literally talking out of his ass. He didn't rock MVP. He got embarrassed, totally embarrassed on the feet. And Gary was saying, I didn't have to do it. I didn't have to shoot takedowns, but I did anyway. Like, no, you had to. Otherwise, you would have gotten 30-20. Otherwise, you would have gotten slept or 30-20. MVP, he's just not higher because he still needs to beat, like, he lost to Gary. You know what I mean? He needs to use this striking to beat some of the high-level strikers. If he goes out there, and I want to give him a striker, like, no Gilbert Burns, let's give this guy Wonderboy Thompson, or let's give him someone that's going to stand with him, that's also really hyped up on the feet. If he goes out there and outstrikes a JDM, Wonderboy Thompson, and gets those wins, then it's like, all right, dude, this guy could be the best striker in the UFC right now. He arguably is, but the resume's lacking. You get my point. On to the next one. Petr Yan, technical maestro, rocked O'Malley, outboxed O'Malley. O'Malley outpointed him a little bit, but Yan got the better of the boxing exchanges, right? O'Malley was jabbing him up. Yan was landing the slick combinations and the big, powerful counters that were getting a huge, reaction from O'Malley. We saw him kind of style on Cory Sandhagen. There's this narrative that the Cory Sandhagen fight was razor close. The first round was Sandhagen's. The second round was sort of competitive. After that, it wasn't that close. Yan was kind of just doing whatever the fuck he wanted, making up sequences, combinations on Cory Sandhagen. So again, like, O'Malley is a absolute 1 in a million MMA fighter when it comes to his striking. He is a phenomenon, right? A phenom. And I think that Yan having a really close fight with O'Malley speaks volumes of his skill set. Also, outstriking Jose Aldo. They had a very close battle, but Yan sort of pulled ahead in the later rounds, and you could tell he was playing the long approach to where he was trying to get Aldo to blow his steam early, and he was still giving Aldo the business in moments and pulled away and just broke him down on the feet in the 4th round, in the 3rd round. I mean, outstriking Aldo, outstriking Cory Sandhagen, who's on this list. Cory Sandhagen outstrikes damn near everyone except for a couple of people in that division. And how would he do in a rematch with O'Malley? I don't know, but it would be close, right? He has a decent chance because he's so well-rounded. But the thing is, he's so well-rounded, I feel like you kind of need to shoot takedowns on O'Malley to win that fight, okay? So Yan can't be that much higher. But, and again, he's kind of low output, so that's kind of a knock on him too. You know what I mean? Going back to what I just said about shooting takedowns and how it might be necessary, this guy is just kind of low output at times, and that's kind of been a bit of an Achilles heel for him. And you can't be having like fights that are left up to the judges based on low output moments, okay? Either way, one of the best boxers in UFC history. His hand speed, combinations, timing, ability to time perfect counter shots, it's second to none. He's the best boxer, in my opinion, or arguably the best boxer. Kicks are amazing too. Everything this guy does when it comes to his striking is perfect. His body kicks are perfect. Like, there's something so satisfying in seeing Petr Yan throw like a switch kick to the body because it's so fast and it's like the perfect technique, and he could be in front of anyone. Any striker in the world is going to get hit by that shot. And it's got a lot of impact, a lot of sting on it too. His leg kicks are great. He's got every fucking strike you could possibly imagine. Spinning wheel kicks. He was hitting Cory Sandhagen with a spinning kick. So, yeah, he's got everything. Even the knees. Okay, ask Aljo. Even though that kind of fucked over his career a little bit. He's got good knees too. Either way, Yan has to make this list. But I just think that it's because someone's higher than him that I don't know how much higher I'm going to put him. And also low output moments. I don't know. Jan's great, but I think he's a little bit too low output right now. And also a great win over Song Yadong, but not dominant. If he dominated Song Yadong, if he totally outclassed him on the feet, I think we'd have him higher. But it was a close fight. Yan edged it out. But, like, you know, we'll see what he does next time. Maybe we'll bump him up a little bit. Islam Makhachev at number 7. I don't think this is controversial anymore. I had Islam Makhachev at my number 10 spot. The last time I made this video, that was before he fought Volk in the rematch. That was before he fought Dustin Poirier. Okay? It's not controversial to put this guy in here anymore. I know that the threat of the takedown is present, but this guy's been too good on the feet against too high levels of competition to where I cannot put him any lower. He outstruck Volkanovski in that first fight. We're not talking about the fat Volk off of the couch with an arm injury. We're talking about fresh Volkanovski with a 6-month bulk to get ready for a lightweight fight, coming off of a Max Holloway trilogy 50-45 performance. And yes, the takedown was present in the mind of Volk. Either way, Islam Makhachev, and I've rewatched this fight more than any fight that I've ever rewatched. Probably like 15 times. Every time I've seen it, it's gotten more clear that Islam Makhachev won the striking exchanges. Makhachev effortlessly landing on Alexander Volkanovski. Volkanovski seemed to have been putting a lot more effort into just landing strikes, missing most of the strikes that he would throw, right? Whereas Islam Makhachev's accuracy is and efficiency with the way he strikes is on point. He wasn't really working hard to land clean shots on Volkanovski, clean counters. He's got an amazing boxing game. We saw it in the Volk fights. We saw it in the Charles Oliveira fight. And I know that Oliveira is not really talked about as being, you know, a top 10 striker in the sport, but Oliveira is a dangerous striker, very dangerous striker. I mean, we saw his title reign. That just proves it. And Makhachev schooled him, right? We talked about Sean Strickland's defense. We talked about Jan Blachowicz' defense. Islam Makhachev's defense is awesome as well. That's why Volkanovski's like stressing to be able to hit this guy. You know what I mean? That's why Charles Oliveira couldn't graze this guy when we saw Charles Oliveira landing 1 million strikes on Gaethje and 1 million strikes on Poirier. His defense is OP. His boxing is incredible. He was getting the better of Dustin Poirier in boxing sequences, which was insane. The 4th round was the only round in which Poirier won. And, you know, that again, if he had styled on Poirier and never lost a round, maybe we'd even bump him higher. But, you know, either way, number 7 is pretty crazy. Yeah, I got to have Islam Makhachev on this list. You know, also, not only is his defense and boxing amazing, his kicking game is great. He's got great body kicks, great head kicks, and the clinch striking is really the ultimate argument. If you're not convinced yet, if you're not convinced that he's in the top 10, the clinch game should be the factor that gets you there, because this is the thing. Most of these guys that we're going to talk about on this list don't have amazing clinch striking, right? We often see people get into the clinch and they're just not doing anything with it. They're not landing anything. They're just smudging someone up against the fence, or they're landing little pipsqueak shots to the body, right? Little nudging shots. Islam Makhachev has some of the nastiest knees, elbows, body shots in the clinch, and he's actively striking in the clinch at all times, You know what I mean? The knees that he was hitting Volkanovski and Poirier with were nasty. Okay? And again, always throwing stuff in the clinch with sting on it too. Every single second this guy was in the clinch with Volkanovski in that first fight, he was landing big knees to the midsection and taking the air out of him. So just a really well-rounded striker, really defensively sound, great boxing, great kicks, good power. I mean, how would he not be a top 10 if he's getting wins over guys like Volk? You know what I mean? If he's getting wins over guys like Oliveira and making Oliveira whiff and look like a fool. If he's outstriking Dustin Poirier. I know the takedown is present, the threat of the takedown, but still, I'm seeing this guy beat the shit out of people on the feet with perfect technique in multiple realms of the striking. He's on the fucking list. Number 7. Okay? Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. A little bit inactive. That's the only reason why he's low. I was gonna, the guy's number 6. That's low for Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. He's just been a little bit inactive, hasn't been fighting that much. But either way, nobody has ever outstruck Stephen Wonderboy Thompson in like a 5-rounder. You know what I mean? Or in a 3-round fight. People have knocked him out. People have dropped him. Pettis knocked him out. Woodley dropped him. Woodley had big moments. But when I'm talking about, who's the best striker in MMA, there's something to be said about creating a gap when you're fighting your opponent when it comes to just points. Creating a massive gap, making them miss and landing tons of strikes on them and, like 50-45ing them. And Wonderboy, he's the king of that. I mean, this guy was beating the crap out of Anthony Pettis before he got knocked out. He was getting the better of most of the striking exchanges against prime Tyron Woodley. And look at what he did to Jeff Neal, 50-45. And he wasn't making it that much of a boring fight. He was throwing lots of output against Jeff Neal on the back foot, just landing tons of strikes, and Jeff Neal was whiffing and missing. You know what I mean? Clean 50-45 against Jeff Neal, only striking. Vicente Luque. People have wars with Vicente Luque. People have close battles with him, even those that beat him. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson embarrassed Vicente Luque. You want to see what an embarrassing performance, or not an embarrassing performance, but you want to see what an embarrassment style of beatdown is? Watch Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Vicente Luque, just like dropping him with side kicks to the body, left and right, with the boxing. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson's got underrated boxing too. I know we always talk about the kicks and he looks like he's fighting in a live action karate movie, but his hand speed is ridiculous. This guy's hands, his boxing is insane too. Very fast, unpredictable. We saw what he did to Kevin Holland. He also embarrassed Jorge Masvidal too. Like, this is probably the only guy in the UFC that can strike with high output, right? That can also use the techniques that you would see in like a kung fu movie to be over the top and entertaining. Like, he's doing that in real life in the best promotion against good strikers. You know what I mean? He outstruck Jorge Masvidal while Masvidal was in his prime. And these days people have like this Jorge Masvidal sucks sort of attitude, but Jorge in his prime was legit. He was a monster on the feet, and this guy totally embarrassed him. Vicente Luque back in the day was a monster, and he embarrassed him. Kevin Holland, decent striker. Just put a beat down on him with tons of output, created such a gap over him that it was just undeniable that Stephen Thompson is like the only one capable of doing that other than MVP. So, yeah. No one outstrikes this guy. No one can outstrike this guy. Also knocked out Robert Whittaker back in the day. Before he fought for the title a couple times, he was a knockout guy. He was knocking everyone out. So he's got the KOs. He's got the master classes. The only reason why he's slipping a little bit is because he's been a bit inactive and he's getting a little bit older. But that's kind of it. You know what I mean? This is sort of like a pound-for-pound strikers list. Like, what have you been doing recently, as well as your career? Max Holloway, number 5. Okay? I got Holloway at number 5. Come on. Like, this guy has the record for the most significant strikes ever landed. He's had some of the best highlight reel performances ever. He's coming off of what may be his best performance ever, Justin Gaethje, who most people picked to beat Max Holloway. And it's not even that he knocked out Justin Gaethje that was so impressive. Like, that was the highlight, for sure. But what really does Max favors in this conversation is the fact that he had the cleanest, easiest looking striking performance against Gaethje. You know what I mean? Right? Like, everyone else that's beat Gaethje in the past has gone to war and had a barn burner with him. I know after the fight, people were saying, Max Holloway and Justin Gaethje, best fight of all time. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? That was not a war. It wasn't a back and forth scrap. The first, second, and third round was a totally easy cruise masterclass for Max Holloway. Like, he wasn't putting a tremendous beatdown on him, but he was making Gaethje look like a drastically inferior striker, right? The fact that Holloway had a clean-looking masterclass against Gaethje for the majority of that fight and also knocked him out is what's so impressive. Not just the fact that he KO'd him. Everyone else has had a dirty scrap with Gaethje, not Holloway, though. And obviously, we've seen Max Holloway beat Jose Aldo twice. Jose Aldo would be on this list if he had fought more than once in the last couple of years. You know what I mean? Jose Aldo is still one of the best strikers to ever walk the planet. Holloway beat his ass twice and finished him. We've seen this guy have a razor-close fight with Dustin Poirier in 2019. And I know he lost that fight, but he wasn't as good as he is today. He's improved. And he also was fat and hadn't really had like a lot of time to prepare for that fight either. It wasn't the best version of Max, but he still got 2 rounds off of him and had a pretty close fight with him. You know what I mean? And of course, we've seen this guy just time and time again, like Robert Whittaker, beat the dangerous contenders up. Like I talked about the Yair Rodriguez fight and how good Yair was. Well, Holloway was also going tit for tat with him and damn near even with him on the feet. Arnold Allen is an insanely good striker. He's an insanely good fighter. The only reason Arnold Allen isn't talked about as someone that's like one of the best in the world is because, well, number one, he was robbed in his last fight, so that doesn't help. He actually won his last fight. But also because you got people like Max Holloway and Volkanovski in the division. If those guys don't exist, then Arnold Allen could be a champion. Like, he's that good on the feet. Arnold Allen took 2 rounds against Max. And I know this sounds kind of crazy because it's like, oh, well, you know, Holloway lost 2 rounds. How are you going to hype him up off for that? But he's like consistently beating people that are good enough to beat. Like, we're hyping up Max Holloway's wins because, like, you know the people are good if they're able to take a round off of him. Arnold Allen took 2 rounds off of Holloway. Holloway beat that guy. That's like the 5th, 6th high-level, young, up-and-coming contender that Holloway's beat. I'm just going to prove the point. I'm just trying to prove the point that the people that he's beating aren't just fucking old heads. You know, he's not just beating some regular, you know, grappler with mediocre striker. He's beating Arnold Allen, who's one of the fastest, you know, strikers in that division. He's beating TKZ. He's beating, I meant to say Yair, actually, but he beat TKZ too. He's an old head. But you sort of get my point. Calvin Kattar was the guy that could also be brought up after he lost that second fight to Volkanovski, destroyed Calvin Kattar, and had his arguable best beatdown performance ever. We saw the Ortega fight. We saw the Aldo fights. We've seen the Ricardo Lamas fight. Like, there's just so many wins that this guy has, and he's not slowing down. He's only getting better. So, yeah, you got to put Max Holloway here. The only reason why he's not higher is because you've got Topuria and Volkanovski higher. Like, listen, we're going to talk about Volkan, Topuria, and Max all at the same time. Topuria, I have at the number 4 spot. Volk, I have at the number 3 spot. Now, right off the bat, why is Max slower than Volk? Because Volk beat him 3 fucking times. Okay? And Volk's losing when it's statistically permissible to lose, bro. Okay, but let's get serious because, you know, listen, I know Volk got KO'd by Makhachev in the rematch. I don't give a fuck. He was old, fat, and Volk is like 35. He's done. He's cooked. Like, listen, all jokes aside, I'm fucking sick and tired of people saying that Holloway's a better boxer than Volk. They don't even say that. They're just like, best boxer in the UFC, baby. And I get it. Like, I'm a Holloway fan too. He's one of my favorite fighters, but let's not fucking forget what Volkanovski did to him 3 times. All right? Don't even try to get fancy and try to sit here and lecture me about that rematch. I know a lot about the rematch. Okay? I know Holloway knocked down Volkanovski in the first round and the second round. Volkanovski at his worst, down 2 rounds against Holloway. Can't finish him. Granite chin. Best cardio in that division, arguably. Highest output striker in UFC history. Really high fight IQ. Can kick at range. Can box. Can do it all. Great takedown defense. Volk was down 2 rounds against Max Holloway on his worst night. And he still won the rest of the fight. Still run every single round from there on out in a title fight with tons of pressure. Don't even fucking sit here and try to hype up Max for the rematch. He was close with Volkanovski. That's great. There were 2 other fights, by the way, where it wasn't so close. So don't even fucking start. Don't even try to sit here and tell me Holloway's higher than Volk. I know Volk is on a downwards trajectory. You're about to see it, man. People are acting like, I know Paddy Pimblett just came out with some quote today saying, everyone's kind of just picking Max and we're all agreeing that Max is going to destroy this guy. Who is this? Why are people acting like Ilia Topuria isn't a fucking freak? Like, this guy is a Martian when it comes to his striking because of how technical it is, how patient he is, and how dangerous he is all at the same fucking time. A very rare triple threat combination. Technical, patient, and extremely dangerous with also decent output. Listen, the reason why I have Ilia Topuria higher than Max right now is because he just knocked out Volk. And listen, I know that we just talked about Wonderboy Thompson getting KO'd and whatnot. And fair enough, maybe I'll put Holloway above Ilia. I'll put Holloway above Ilia. All right, we'll change that. We'll put him at the number 4 spot. We'll put Ilia at the number 5 spot. Because I actually just remembered the thing that we talked about with Wonderboy Thompson, where he got knocked out by Pettis, but he was outpointing him. Ilia was getting kind of outpointed by Volk. Either way, he had just beat Emmett. That wasn't enough to even warrant him a spot in the top 10. Listen, my point is, I'm not... Let's talk about Topuria, by the way. He just beat Volk, and it wasn't just because Volk had no chin. You know what I mean? He beat Volkanovski because Alexander Volkanovski had a problem with his defense. He pulls his chin back straight in the air when, like, he's evading a combination or whatever. That's how he... that's a part of Volk's defense, where he just pulls his head back and hopes to get out of the way and slip the punch or whatever. But Topuria took advantage of that. Topuria prepared for that perfectly. No one else has been able to knock Volk out like that. Ilia Topuria was skilled enough to do it. It wasn't just Volk got knocked out after 4 months, it wasn't enough time off. Listen, Volk would have gotten KO'd by that same combination, by that same punch if it was on a full training camp. You know what I mean? Volkanovski has to have the perfect 25 minutes to survive against Ilia Topuria on the feet to be able to win. Topuria literally just needs to do all right and get one moment. And he's skilled enough to get that moment because his hand speed and his boxing is so terrifying. People are talking about him like it's just fucking power. This guy has some of the best boxing I've ever seen. His combinations are perfect. He has perfect technique. His defense is excellent. He was literally winning a fight against big meaty hooks Josh Emmett because of the close quarter exchanges where Topuria was getting Emmett to overswing and he would counter him instantly. Like in the fucking pocket with Emmett, embarrassing him. And he knocks Volkanovski out because he took advantage of a fucking weakness in Volk's game. And Volkanovski's one of the best strikers ever. Who else has been able to exploit that? Only one person. So don't be trying to sit here and tell me that Holloway is just, 10 leagues above Ilia Topuria just because he beat fucking Gagey Grunt. Rufus. Listen, I know Gagey's good. You want to talk about levels? Let's talk about levels between Justin Gagey, who's a good striker at 55, and the best strikers at 45. There are fucking levels. All right? I know Holloway styled on Gagey. He could actually get outdamaged and beat up by Topuria too. Like, this guy's boxing is that good. If he gets in the pocket with Max, he can land a 3-piece combination, and there ain't nothing Holloway's going to be able to do about those. I'm not saying he gets KO'd. I'm just saying, like, there are going to be moments where Ilia Topuria is good enough to be able to tee off on Max with a combination. And that combination is going to be so damaging that he could win the fight with those moments. Don't try to sit here and act like that's impossible. Ilia Topuria is a top 5 striker in the UFC. All right? The masterclass against Josh Emmett, I know people are going to say, it was the wrestling, dude. Dude, the wrestling came into the equation in like the 4th and 5th round when he had dropped Emmett. He had dominated him on the feet in close quarters. I know Emmett's not that great. Like, I know Yair Rodriguez rolled him up into a joint, but Yair kind of went crazy on him. Ilia Topuria was able to contain it and make it look super clean and surgical. And even though Volk was slightly outpointing him, he was still in there. He was still doing well. You know what I mean? It looked like he hadn't even broken a sweat. Volkanovski was like wide-eyed, frantic to just be able to evade the big, powerful shots of Ilia. So, perfect technique, perfect boxing, really high fight IQ, good defense. him and Max are very close. You know, I'm going to put Max above him because Holloway has a much better resume and he's proven more. But Ilya's win over Volkanovski kind of catapults him to the top 5. You know what I mean? And, I mean, we've seen what he was able to do to Emmett too. And it's impressive because of the way Emmett fights and where he's at his most dangerous. And Ilia Topuria was able to outbox him in the pocket, which is very impressive. Volk at number 3. Come on. Like, yes, he's on a downward slide, but similar to Wonderboy Thompson, he was doing well against Ilia Topuria. I know he got KO'd and it's a skill thing. Again, I don't want to hear anything about Volk only lost because he was coming off of a KO and he fought differently. Like, how did you want him to fight? You wanted him to fucking march down Ilia Topuria, bite down on the mouthpiece, and slug with him? Volk wasn't aggressive enough. The only thing you could say is that he should have grappled more, or he should have grappled, which he didn't. That's the only thing he didn't do. But he's never taken that punch, and it was a skill thing. Fair enough. But he was doing very well. Like, I mean, now that we're at the number 3 spot, the reason why Volk isn't higher is because he's on the downward slide a little bit. But he was still doing really well. And this is the thing about Volkanovski. No one will ever outpoint this guy with a striking-only battle. Unless you're maybe Islam Makhachev. I could see Islam is that good, to be honest. I mean, Islam isn't higher because people bring up the threat of the takedown. Like, I honestly think he is the only one capable of doing it. That's how good he is. So, again, this list isn't perfect. But back to my point, at featherweight at least, nobody's winning a points battle against Volk. Holloway couldn't. Holloway got 50-45 in their trilogy. Holloway got beat 4 rounds to 1 because of the striking in the first fight. Was up 2 rounds, couldn't beat Volkanovski. Holloway had a 2-round lead. Couldn't beat him in the rematch. You can't outstrike this guy on points. His output is insane. His cardio is insane. Speed is off the charts. Ilia Topuria was making people look like fools. You know what I mean? Emmett was struggling to graze this guy. Emmett had to go through life and death. Fucking hell. Emmett had to go through, you know, a whole trial and tribulation just to be able to land a couple of punches every now and then on Ilia. Volkanovski was just pacing him up, you know, fucking pacing him up. Yeah, yeah. Volkanovski just fucking styling on this guy. Just jabbing him up. Oh, yeah. Straight up, dude. Volkanovski was freaking flowing. Yeah, and the kicks. We know Volkanovski won that first Holloway fight with the kicks. His boxing still looked good, but it was the kicks. Volkanovski's kicking game is insane, too. I know he doesn't have, like, a lot of sting on them, and he couldn't damage the leg of Topuria, but he was freaking pacing him up. Dude, he was like, doubling up, tripling up on kicks. 1 kick, 2 kick, 3 kicks, bro. Volkanovski was fucking... I'm going to have people freaking shitting on me in the comments for glazing, but, like, dude, outstruck Max 3 times. TKO'd Yair Rodriguez, who's on this list. Holloway's literally a top 5 striker. Volk struck him 3 times. So, like, don't even come at me and be like, Volk at number 3. Come on, man. He's not higher than Max. Dude, stop. Okay? Like, how silly do you have to be to fucking make that argument? Come on, dude. Higher than Max? Shut the hell up. Okay? Also, you know, he did kind of hold Aldo to less than 30 strikes in that 3-rounder. I believe Volkanovski landed 92 strikes and Aldo he held to only 28. I mean, that's something too. You know, if you needed more, but he also TKO'd Yair Rodriguez, who's on the list. And don't even say you only put Yair because you wanted to hype up Volk. Max was shooting takedowns. Volk was shooting takedowns. We talked about Ilia Topuria's performance against Emmett. Yair literally fucking folded him and smoked him. All right, don't even start. Okay. So, yeah, Volk's on the list. We saw what he did. Even Ortega. Ortega's one of these guys, zombie mode on the feet, always moving forward. Max Holloway had a great performance against Ortega. He was getting hit with some shots where the whole crowd was saying, holy shit, how did Holloway take that? Like, Ortega was landing lots of strikes. It's just that Holloway's output is so insane that he eventually got the better of Ortega. Ortega was landing tons of great strikes. On the feet, Volkanovski made it look clean against Ortega with high output. Surgical, masterclass, technical maestro. TKZ, you want to talk about Holloway's win over TKZ? Literally, Volk fought a better TKZ, and it was maybe one of the most one-sided beatdowns we've ever seen in a title fight, and it wasn't just one big KO. That's the thing. Some of these guys, some of your favorite strikers, you know, these guys are like one big punch guys, like Tom Aspinall. He's not a one big punch guy for heavyweight, but like a lot of these guys are one big punch guys. You know what I mean? That they have like a gnarly KO, and people are like, dude, this guy's insane. Ilia Topuria is lucky he can put it together and land some combos, but Volkanovski, Volkanovski, he embarrassed TKZ because the skill gap was so crazy. It wasn't just one big punch. It was like the timing, everything, man. He put a beat down, dropped him like 5 times, had TKZ flopping all over the deck like a fish, and was putting tons of output on him, and was chopping him low with leg kicks, literally freaking crumpling him to the canvas. So Volk's at the number 3 spot. Here's Sean O'Malley. Bit of a different tune with Sean O'Malley, but listen, O'Malley's one of these guys that I'm going to give him his credit right now. I think he KOs Volk, and I think he KOs Ilia Topuria. O'Malley doesn't necessarily have the best resume, but he did outstrike Petr Yan a tiny bit, kickboxing-wise, a tiny bit. Listen, it was a very close fight. Petr Yan outboxed him, got his moments. There's a lot of things that go into who wins an MMA fight. Just because he slightly outstruck Yan doesn't mean that Yan also didn't have an argument to win the fight. My point is, like, just points-wise, O'Malley is the high-output guy in his division. He's the high-output guy that, like, you're just gonna get hit by and you're never gonna outpoint him, ever. No one's gonna win a points battle against O'Malley. Not only is O'Malley winning every single points battle, meaning he's always going to be able to create those exchanges where he gets the better of them based on output, but he's also the fastest in his division. And at this point, I mean, I know Chito Vera didn't get finished, but that's because Chito Vera is made of something that we've never seen before. I mean, that guy has the best chin in the bantamweight division's history. Everyone else gets knocked out 10 times over in that fight if O'Malley's hitting them with the strikes he was hitting Chito with. But, like, O'Malley's also extremely dangerous. O'Malley's also able to face plant you into the canvas if you're Aljamain Sterling just because you overextend on one little punch. Who else has done that to Aljamain Sterling? I know Marlon Moraes knocked him out, but for the most part, like, Aljo is a bit of a sloppy striker, and Jan's in front of him, dropping him and hurting him every now and then, but Yan ain't, like, face planting him. And in the first fucking moment that O'Malley really commits to a punch, Yan isn't getting the win right then and there. O'Malley can. He's that dangerous. Like, one mistake in front of O'Malley and you're on the canvas, looking up at the bright lights. Or he's teeing off with the ground and pound, finishing you on the ground. His output is insane. Like, combinations are crazy. He's dominating people. He's showcasing, like, a tremendous skill gap by beating the shit out of people. We talked about Sean Strickland. Strickland's really good defensively, but I wish he were to just hurt people a little bit more to prove more of a point. O'Malley's fucking people up. Every strike in the book, you name it, O'Malley has. And he can fight from both stances, too. Volk is a guy that can fight from both stances, not even as well as O'Malley. You know what I mean? And O'Malley's got the head kicks. He's got the knees. He's got an amazing boxing game. He's got a nice step-away, fade-back, right hand, left hand, you name it. He's got everything. He's the perfect striker. The only thing that I think he's missing is, I don't really know, to be honest. Maybe he doesn't have, like, his defense may not be the best in the world. I think he relies on the footwork quite a bit. But, like, we really have to nitpick when it comes to holes that O'Malley has in his game. So, given that I think he fucks up every other fighter on the feet in his division, like, I think he would smoke Cory Sandhagen on the feet. You know what I mean? O'Malley is like a fast-twitch, hard-hitting, higher output version of Cory Sandhagen that's also flashy on the feet, too, at times. Cory Sandhagen can be a little bit flashy, but everything... O'Malley's like... Dude, he's like Wonderboy Thompson without the flashy kicks, but, like, the flashy punching sequences. You know what I mean? That's what's so crazy, is that he can school people in the best division, arguably, in the UFC, in the bantamweight division, where everyone has amazing striking. And he can school them and also be, like, dribbling in between combos and shit. Like, this guy is looking like he's beating people up on easy mode. And it'll be like a title fight, number one contender fight. So, yeah, I think O'Malley's definitely almost there. But the only thing holding him back is his resume. I just think he needs a couple more of these wins. He needs to fight a guy like Cory Sandhagen and beat him up. He needs to knock out a Merab. If he KOs Merab, I don't think he necessarily moves up. But if he beats another striker who's really good, I think you could say he's the best striker. So O'Malley's at the number 2 spot because of the eye test, because of, like, just no one else is able to do what he can do. You know what I mean? And also what he's doing it in the best division, arguably. So Alex Pereira at the number 1 spot. Not only is Pereira dominating strikers. So, like, he's not only just winning, he's, like, dominating, but he's dominating strikers, the best strikers in his division. I know that Jamal Hill can be a little bit sloppy. I know Yuri has terrible defense, but, like, if you think about it, they're strikers, and they are the best strikers in their division. Yuri Prochazka beat Alexander Rakic. I know Rakic was whooping him up early, but Yuri won that fight via striking. Jamal Hill won the title and masterclassed over Glover Teixeira via striking. And if Alex Pereira doesn't exist, we're all talking about Jamal Hill, man. He's the best striker light heavyweight, man. A lot of people might be saying shit like that. Yuri Prochazka, dude, he's just so hard to beat. No one can beat him, even though how wild he is and how he doesn't have great defense. Pereira is Thanos in this division. Like, it is a division that is ran by strikers for the most part, and he is getting better every single title defense. And, like, everything he does is by the book. Perfect technique with his leg kicks, perfect technique with the left hook. He can knock you out, but he can also outstrike you and school you with output. Look at his fight with Jan Blachowicz. Even though Blachowicz was doing well, Pereira was still winning via output. You know, he's mixing it up to the body. He's mixing his targets. He's landing the leg kicks. Out leg kicking Jan Blachowicz, winning the leg kick battle. His defense. Let's talk about the defense. I know that, you know, we used to talk about Alex Pereira not having the best defense because he had gotten hurt by Adesanya in the first fight, knocked out in the second, but it's improved. Like, he's hard to hit clean. And he's getting a lot better. Parrying punches, like using his guard to deflect punches as well. He rolls with shots. Like, his defense is arguably up there with Jan Blachowicz. Like, he has some of the best defense in that division, in the upper weight classes, with high output, with perfect technique, with tons of knockout power, with really high fight IQ. And the wins are there too to support it. Like a win over Jan Blachowicz, a win over Sean Strickland, who's known as one of the most defensively sound strikers in the game. This dude knocked him the fuck out and wasn't even having trouble hitting Sean Strickland, was kicking him. Sean Strickland's got really good leg kick defense. We saw it in the Adesanya fight. We saw it in the Paulo Costa fight. Pereira didn't have an issue with it. Pereira was jabbing him up to the body. Okay, it's hard to hit Sean Strickland in the face. Let's jab him up to the body. Landed the left hook early. No issue. Of course, knocked out Jamal Hill, knocked out Yuri Prochazka. I know right now it's easy to say Yuri's not that good, but Yuri Prochazka hasn't lost to anyone else. And he's knocked out people badly, left and right. Like, Yuri Prochazka is a nightmare to deal with. He's the guy where, you know, most people would say, okay, it's not going to be clean. Like, you're going to have to scrap a little bit. Like, Yuri drags you into such an ugly, unorthodox fight that it's going to get a little sloppy. It didn't get sloppy at all in the last fight. You know what I mean? Jamal Hill didn't have any success, and he is one of the better strikers at light heavyweight. So the resume is there right now for Alex Pereira. Won 2 belts in different weight classes, middleweight belt, and he's got not just one good middleweight win, but 2, right? Not just Sean Strickland. He's got a win over Izzy. And, you know, only 1 loss. And, yeah, it was a great win for Adesanya, but it was one of those things where it's not like he was getting outpointed. He got shut off. Similar to Volkanovski, he wasn't getting outpointed by Topuria, but got shut off. Beautiful combination from Adesanya. But I also think that Pereira doesn't fight as well at 185. Either way, he's the #1 best striker in the UFC right now, in my opinion. I know that some people might say, dude, it's got to be a lighter weight class guy. Should be O'Malley. But I just think that Pereira has the best combination of resume and dominance and output and knockout power. Like, he can literally do it all. Also, the clinch striking, I hyped up Islam Makhachev. Alex Pereira is really good in the clinch. Like, he can hurt people in the clinch. He's always active in the clinch, landing knees, landing uppercuts to the body. Like, he's one of these guys that is always going to win those exchanges too. So that's the #1 best striker. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Until next time.